a lot of me from the hood, so people look at Bleak and don't understand the business he's doing. They always look at Jay like, oh
yeah. That's why. That's why you got like Yayo talking about Jay don't take care of. I don't need Jay to go on tour.
Yo, smoke hard coke, yo.
Yo, chill.
You look like you need to be taken care of. You look like you need to go to the dentist. You need to look like you need to brush your teeth. You look like you need hygiene.
No disrespect to Jim Jones. Fifth had me in Battery Park. I could walk out that barefoot.
Get the socks.
See, that's when a nigga love you, nigga. Get the socks, nigga. Sneakers Dior, nigga. But I'm walking out there barefoot. That's when you know a nigga love you, boy. Cause he making sure you don't get your shit split.
He was your man, like on the side, like on the side, just he was not a rapper at all.
During the Memphis Week podcast, Jim Jones made fun of Tony Yayo, and the internet is exploding with his outburst. Nor was the stress arbitrary. This storm has been intensifying for some time now. You may be wondering why these seasoned hip-hop icons are still fighting like they're in 2005. Believe me, there is a lot of depth to this. Words alone are not enough. It concerns pride, loyalty, and the real-time collision of some enormous egos. Let's start at the top of this chaotic situation and work our way down. Memphis, since the days of the Blueprint, Bleak has been Jay-Z's right-hand guy. He has never been fond of Tony Yayo. To be honest, it's easy to understand why. For years, Yayo has been disparaging Jay, accusing him of being a hater and failing to stand by those around him. Bleak, who is like family to him, finds this type of conversation relatable. You didn't stop there, though, which is the crazy part. Bleak was also pulled into it by him. Jay's a hater, man. Tony Yayo stated bluntly in his interview with Shannon Sharpe, he doesn't look out for anyone. Observe Memphis, Bleak. He's not sparkling. He's losing. Then, by boasting that 50 Cent treated him better than Jay treats Bleak, he further twisted the knife. Is it common for someone to do that on national television? It's more than just shade.
Came back off tour.
Yeah.
With Fifth. And we still touring. Still. And I do my own tours too for people. Oh, yo.
See,
I do my own tours. I did tours in Canada. I did a tour across the whole Germany and the Swiss Alps. And that's why I don't care about the hate. Cause I'm like, I got the possibility to do my own tour. Like something with Memphis Bleak. Bleak said Nori. Yayo said, Jay-Z didn't have us on tour like he did, or I eat my own halal. I eat my own halal too, if you want to say that. To Memphis Bleak, I just came off my last tour. All I'm saying is when you see Jay-Z in a setting, he never really, when he's doing a Beyonce show or whatever, you don't see Memphis Bleak on the stage and him.
Entered the conversation. It struck a chord the moment the conversation about who looks after whom began to fly about. Jim wouldn't have it. He arrived hot and eager to show everyone what true pride looks like. He essentially responded, real men don't brag about who feeds them. They feed themselves in typical Jim fashion. And that line struck like a blow. Immediately, you sensed a change in the room's energy. Jim wasn't merely hurting himself. He was criticizing grown men's tendency to brag about who writes their checks. It came directly from the heart and was unfiltered and heartfelt. For Jim, loyalty isn't about receiving favors. It's all about hustle. Jim examined the entire concept rather than merely clapping back. He made the point that it is incredibly shameful to use another man's achievement as justification for your own. Since it's true, that line really got to everyone's gut. What happens after that dude cuts you off? You have no legacy of your own and are stranded. Jim wasn't irrationally angry. It was a direct wake-up call about independence and self-respect. What began as lighthearted banter evolved into a heated discussion on loyalty, pride, and hip-hop hierarchy. Yo's attitude, Bleak's allegiance, 50 Cent's legacy, and Jay-Z's name are all intertwined in a messy confrontation that went viral on the internet. Yayo's entire position is that Jay-Z is a cold, self-centered tycoon who only considers himself and never aids his people. Let's face it though, that's a serious charge against the man who essentially created half of contemporary hip-hop. Shade was no longer enough. It was outright rudeness. The most outrageous thing was that Yayo spoke it as if it were ordinary barbershop banter. As if exposing millionaires were just another Tuesday. He doesn't give a damn about who gets the smoke. However, Memphis Bleek wasn't keeping quiet either after learning about that interview. To correct the record, Bleek blasted Drink Champions, claiming that Yo and he don't have a long-standing grudge. At least, not yet. Over the years, they have shared stages, crossed paths frequently, and even had some good conversations. However, the temperature changed when the second Yo began to doubt Jay-Z's loyalty and Bleek's name was mentioned. You cannot expect peace after becoming a man's mentor. However, what's crazy is that Yo has exhibited similar behavior before. He has made a name for himself by criticizing others for failing to care for their personnel. And this time, after all these years, the habit rekindled one of hip-hop's longest rivalries. Because, yep, here we are again. It's time to resume the dips set against G-Unit's smoke. Everyone recalls that time period, Jim. Jones was caught in the thick of 50 Cent and Cameron's back and forth. And New York hip-hop was divided in two. The majority of people believed that era was over, but Yo just brought that turmoil back into the public eye. He even went so far as to accuse Jim Jones of neglecting his late artist, Stack Bundles, on Math Hoffer's podcast. Yo claims that Stack was abandoned and that he may have survived the hood if Jim had given him more support. It's a bold statement to make on TV, particularly regarding a deceased person. For those who are unaware, Stack Bundles was more than just a young person from the neighborhood pursuing a dream. That individual was signed to the Jim Jones Bird Gang label. Everyone from Dipset to G-Unit respected him as one of the most talented emerging voices from Queens. Even now, a culture is profoundly hurt by his passing. Thus, it made everyone's nerves tingle to hear Yo spew shade like that. What began as a discussion about loyalty devolved into an in-depth exploration of hip-hop ethics between those who merely act as the boss of the cameras and those that truly ride for their people. Jim could have retaliated forcefully. However, there's no denying that the old New York spirit has returned with this new wave of tension. They were all unwilling to leave the hood. Nobody ever discusses that pot. Jim was giving them more than just a couch. He was giving them a completely other kind of existence. A home, security, safety, everything that most rappers desire. However, leaving feels like a betrayal when you're rooted in those streets and connected to your block.
You know, even if I'm doing the hype man shit with 50, he's bringing me out. I'm making money. I'm going to...
That's that man girl too.
That's it. That's Hov's wife tour.
Yeah, that's Hov wife tour.
So I believe if Hov was out on his own, he would bring Bleek out. There is no need for him to bring Bleek in a situation where it looked like if this was last tour you're talking about with the Cowboy Carter.
Right.
Yeah.
So to me, because I look at Bleek as a loyal guy, like I'm a loyal guy to Jay. But I look at like Fifth, my guy Hervé. One day we had TRL, and it's the young gun that's there.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to him about it. And Hervé says loud, "You don't gotta worry about nothing. You got 50. Jay-Z doesn't do nothing for these guys like 50 does." And Hervé, I think he worked with them too. But he said that to me, and that always stuck in my head. Rest in peace to him.
I'm Tony Yayo said, Hov don't look out for me like 50 look out for him.
Oh, where he said that?
I just want to clear that up. Hov don't have to.
All right.
You know what I mean?
All right. Okay.
I'm chewing the loud on my own. If Hov look out, I'm telling you, I'll be up there.
Right.
So when y'all see me out here, that's the Blizzard budget. But back to you, I'm sorry for cutting you off. But I just want to let niggas know Hov don't have to.
Jim himself said it. They didn't want to depart, but he was prepared to purchase that brownstone. And Stack ultimately lost everything as a result of that choice. It serves as a devastating reminder that not everyone can be saved by success. The group was still pursuing the same corner aspirations despite Jim's efforts to take them to a new world. And for that reason, the incident still bothers him. Yo's use of Stack's name in the discussion went beyond simple rudeness. The one wound Jim never fully recovered from was being reopened. Because Stack was more than just an artist in his eyes. He belonged to the family. Supporters can argue over who did what. In actuality, though, Jim made an effort. He provided Stack with the resources, funds, publicity, and even real estate. It is impossible to make someone forsake their upbringing. Unfortunately, their debt is always collected by the streets. Jim now speaks about Stack out of loss rather than guilt. He recognized the possibilities. He observed the spark and saw it go out too quickly. Tony Yayo's remarks come across as a cheap shot because of this. He made a eulogy into something useful. Jim has no intention of flaunting or protecting his reputation. He was standing up for a legacy that is still painful to discuss. Because it's more than just a story whenever Stack's name is spoken. It serves as a reminder of what occurs when sorrow and talent meet, as well as how easily loyalty can be turned into blame. They were all unwilling to leave the hood. And the tragedy starts there. Jim wasn't merely giving them anything. In order to save them from the impending peril, he was providing them a lifeline of full brownstone in Jersey City. However, block loyalty has a lot of power. Success, in their opinion, meant carrying the hood along rather than abandoning it. Jim realized what was about to happen, and that's what shattered him. And despite his best efforts, he was unable to stop it. Jim also wasn't playing a bluff. They were living like stars thanks to him. Tour buses, private aircraft, and $100,000 Miami weekends. He provided a world for his boys. He went so far as to say that he avoids discussing the Stack in public since it still goes too deep. It was obvious that this wasn't a label situation. Family was involved. However, the streets and celebrities don't mix. Invariably, one devours the other. And that's precisely what took place. The narrative then takes a more sinister turn. Fans began to claim that Jim had failed Stack in more ways than one. They say he turned into Stack. His entire mood, from his language to his drip. According to some, Jim created his contemporary depiction of the energy Stack left behind. He has been plagued by this icy charge for years. Stack Bundles was ahead of his time, let's face it. He would be in the first row at Paris Fashion Week if he were still living. Without a doubt. However, Jim has consistently denied that story. He maintains that Stack didn't want to leave the neighborhood and that he provided him everything, including money, visibility, and mobility. Jim believed that he fulfilled his role as a big homie. Fans, however, continued to perceive it as neglect, and ever since then, he has been plagued by that shame and that judgment. Therefore, it was more than just a disc when Tony Yayo ventured to mention Stack's name. It was a trigger. That's why Jim lost his temper during that depressing sit-down in Memphis. His voice was filled with pain. He wasn't trying to gain influence. He was disrespecting a memory that was based on survival, loss, and camaraderie. And people tend to forget that. For Jim, Stack Bundles is more than simply a rap moniker. He is still followed by this spirit. Jay is always brought up when someone questions his commitment, saying things like, "Yeah, yo, Jay, don't take care of his people." Jim, however, wasn't having it. He retaliated forcefully. "Jay doesn't have to feed me. You appear to require assistance. You appear to require a life coach, a dentist, and a cleanliness specialist." It was more than a simple retort. There was a blast. Jim replied, "It's got a G for every bump on Yo's face." They made it apparent that no one is relying on handouts over here. Jim wasn't attempting to be diplomatic, despite Memphis Black's best efforts to maintain order. He was venting his annoyances in real time while on full demon time. Jim became so raw that the beef no longer felt like beef. It had the feel of counseling. He stated bluntly, none of these guys are impoverished. They simply enjoy debating who had the superior sponsor. By likening their back and forth to a sugar daddy competition, he turned the entire situation into a roast session. It was barbaric. Here's the twist, though. And Yo wasn't even saying that. The idea was not that Jim was impoverished. His crew wasn't eating the same as him. That struck a different chord because in hip-hop, the success of your gang is a reflection of your leadership. Jim would have moved in silence if he had simply confronted the issue head-on and said that his people were straight. Instead of cooling things down, the flexing gave the impression that he was bandaging a wound. Yo then had all the ammunition he required. He threw shade-like confetti on Instagram right away. Then, using his trump card, he reposted Max B, Jim's former competitor from the days of the Bird Gang. On the internet, everyone understood what that meant. It wasn't by accident. It was an act of power.